Welcome back to our refresher podcast, Phoenix Training in Addiction and Connection to Treatment, the show where we explore stories, experiences, and big questions shaping our world today. I'm your host, Steve Forzato, Director of the Center for Addiction and Recovery Education at St. Joseph's University. Today, we're diving into a topic that is both difficult and incredibly important: human trafficking. This episode may be sensitive for some listeners, so please take care as you listen. Our goal is not to sensationalize, but to humanize, to shine light on truth and not fear. My guest today is someone whose relationship with the issue began far earlier than most. She was introduced to the realities of human trafficking at a very young age. Since then, she has developed a global perspective on the crisis, learning how it unfolds across countries, cultures, and systems. What's remarkable is not just how early her awareness began, but how she chose to grow with that knowledge, turning understanding into compassion and compassion into action, especially so now that our guest, Dr. Nina Ahmad, is a Philadelphia Council member at large here in Pennsylvania. Today, we're talking about what trafficking really looks like, far beyond the headlines, the myths, the movies. We're here to discuss how it impacts communities worldwide, certainly locally, what survivors want the public to understand, and most importantly, what each of us as first responders and just members of the community, right, we can do to create safer, more informed, more vigilant communities. Thank you for joining us for this crucial conversation. Let's begin. Dr. Ahmad, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me and being willing to talk about this topic. For many, it's better left hidden, and it is a problem, and we need to face it, and we need to address it, and we need to move our society and change our culture around thinking about these issues. And that's why it's wonderful that our conversation is going to reach so many people, especially those who are on the front lines of sometimes engaging with people who have been trafficked. So every chance I get, I'm happy to talk and share what I know and learn, because we're all learning all the time. I don't have all the answers. And my job as a city council member serving in Philadelphia is to be the eyes and ears so I can take what community says and transform that into policy.
Yeah, well, thank you. There's a lot of issues as a council member at large that you deal with in the city of Philadelphia. And my heart jumped a beat when I learned that you were digging in on this topic and making it a priority, not just for you, but for city government. Thank you so much. A brief introduction to human trafficking. Our audience has listened to this podcast before. And, we talk about human trafficking. I think perhaps in this conversation, we'll probably lean towards the commercial sex trafficking. There is obviously labor trafficking. There are folks being trafficked for labor, but I see our conversation moving towards those that are being forced and coerced.
Yes. And that is the definition, really, of a crime of using force, fraud, or coercion to induce another person to perform sex acts or labor acts, right? So there's also complicity here. Like, it doesn't mean you're dragged to do something. It could be you're groomed over time to do and get you into a frame of mind where you feel trust and confidence in the person grooming you. Yeah. And that is actually a very common way, particularly for our young, vulnerable people, to get engaged in this.
So, Dr. Ahmad, that's not great fodder for movies. So when movies address human trafficking, it's kidnapping.
That's right. The white van coming in and picking you up, which happens too. Yes. Let's not make sure people think that doesn't happen. That happens. Getting transported from another country, that happens. But what happens is right on our streets, right outside City Hall where I sit at the corner of 15th and Market at the local, the subway station there are traffickers lurking, particularly to target vulnerable children who might be part of the foster care system. And these are children particularly who actually have not been placed in families or don't have anybody but are in group homes, are in situations where they're fending for themselves. Many are on the streets. And these are people, our children, on the streets getting targeted.
Gotcha. And so some folks, and we try to dispel some myths, some people think, well, it's just broken homes, but often it's more than that, isn't it? It's homes that there are certain abuses going on. I'm not just talking about sexual abuse, but violence in the homes, like mental health disorders in the home, children feel neglected, and certainly poverty or not being confident there's going to be a meal on the table every day. And so because of those difficult childhood experiences, they become vulnerable, correct?
Correct. You're predisposed for getting groomed by somebody, right?
Yeah.
When especially when you're looking for a safe space, when you're looking for an adult, if you're a young person or even a young adult, looking for support, we all want that. We all want those human connections. And because this is a multi-billion-dollar business, you have people who are very good actors who will start you off in the space of getting your confidence, giving you things you don't have, really making you feel safe, and then they'll turn when their business mode sets in, and then you're trafficked.
Yep. Great. Yeah, and I think our audience is going to understand that.
Yeah.
Because particularly our children and youth audience, they see this.
Yeah.
Not all the time.
No.
However, they do see it. They have cases. And then when they have one case in, let's say, a rural county, everybody knows about it, and then they're on the lookout for it. So
That's right.
you have a unique perspective, Dr. Ahmad, because I think of your background. And please, if you would be willing,
Yes.
share your country of origin and what happened that got you started thinking about this issue.
Yes, so thank you for that. So I am an immigrant from Bangladesh, and I lived as a young person through the war of independence that created the country. And during that time, in 9 months, it was a very violent time. 3 million people were killed in 9 months. And
It was genocide.
it was a genocide. And like 250,000 plus, and those are lower estimate, women and girls were brutalized as a tool of war, which meant they were kept and they were repeatedly brutalized. They were they were trafficked around within the military. This is all to make sure the communities they came from, the country where we were, that our spirit was broken. And what they did was they took, when the military would come into someone's house, they would separate the men from the women and children and rape the women and girls in front of the men in the family and then kill them all. So this, when you have this awareness, particularly because this crime of human trafficking impacts women primarily. There are LGBTQ community who are vulnerable and men as well, but 90% of the impact is on women and
Yeah.
girls.
So it's women and girls, and it's men and boys.
Men and boys, yeah.
But you're right. That percentage is accurate. According to research,
That's
it
right.
is the 33 years that I served in law enforcement, it was almost all women, and then members of the LGBTQ plus community, and unfortunately boys. But so at that age in Bangladesh, you're a duly independent nation,
Yes.
or at least fighting to become that.
Yes.
Listen, you should probably write a book and maybe not reveal it all on a podcast, but I do have this just fascination. What was it like to be, 11, 12 years
Yes.
old,
Yes.
and hopefully not see what you describe, but maybe you don't have to share that. But you knew something was going on.
Oh, yes,
did
we
you
saw
put
it.
Did you put it together then?
Yep.
Or is it something you learned after?
So in wartime, you can't protect children from seeing things in a newspaper, watching things. And listening to overseas news, because our local news was very tightly controlled. We couldn't hear anything, but illicit information was getting passed around. In fact, you could get arrested if you were caught hearing BBC on shortwave radio. So we would have to go upstairs to the top of the roof of where we lived with a little shortwave transistor to listen to what exactly was happening.
Book. You gotta write a book. I love to hear. I'm so sorry it happened because it was genocide.
That's right. That's right.
I was 7 when you were, I think, 11.
Yeah.
And even at that age, I saw not a lot of stories. Look, this happens around the world.
Yeah.
What happened in Bangladesh,
happening now.
Eastern Pakistan, has happened and continues to happen.
Correct.
And
that's exactly why this has to come out, that this is not isolated to one part of the world. And this kind of behavior, human trafficking, sort of predicates considering certain humans less than, right? And then it allows you to treat them badly and poorly. The minute you start giving rationale for your bad behavior, we're in trouble as a human race, because as a scientist, as a biomedical scientist, I'll tell you, we're all the same. 99.9% of our DNA is the same. So we look different, Ahmadi, from me to you to Megan, is because of our geographical stress on our bodies over millions of years. So when you strip it all down, we all came from Africa, from Lucy, right?
Yep.
And so when we understand that, we are really everybody's brothers and sisters in the true sense. And we cannot allow these kinds of surface and facile ways of separating us that then causes so much damage because it gets monetized. That's where the problem becomes, you can have cruelty, you can stop it, but when you start monetizing it and people enjoying the product of your cruelty, that's what this is.
Well, that's why a human trafficker, particularly, let's talk about the commercial sex trade, they make money.
Huge.
And
Huge.
And that is the motivation.
Yes.
And so in times of war, I can't even put my head in the head of soldiers that would do that. And it's no excuse. Maybe there's an explanation. There's no excuse for it. And
it's brainwashing of everybody.
it is. Striking
you are
fear.
Militarized. And this is why I think talking to all people in law enforcement becomes so important, that you don't lose your humanity when you are actually practicing what you're taught to do, right?
Absolutely.
And that is why reducing escalation in tense situations, all of these things are very important. And seeing who you are engaging with in human trafficking, as I've said to you before, that we really want to take the onus away from the trafficked person to those who are trafficking and those who are consuming the trafficking. That's what we need to put our focus on. But the lowest hanging fruit is the person who's been trafficked. Yeah. That's who you find in the room, in the road.
And that person, as we teach our audience all over the country, is a victim of a crime and a witness to a crime, and not a perpetrator of a crime.
Correct.
And so I'm happy to report to you, Dr. Ahmad, that our program includes engaging the Office of Attorney General in Pennsylvania, and they came on our show and said they do not arrest the mostly women, sometimes men and boys. They do not arrest for prostitution. And the question is, why would you? Right? Like think about it. So modern policing has sort of smartened up and realized that, okay, you put somebody away for their 10th prostitution arrest. That people need help. They need treatment. They need stability, trauma. Yeah. They needed trauma-informed care, as opposed to another jail sentence for a crime they may be actually forced, coerced, and defrauded into this life.
Correct. And you mentioned the Attorney General. We've been working very closely with his office. We actually did a hearing on online gaming and where that trafficking goes on there. The grooming and trafficking goes on there.
Yeah.
And so they helped us put our
Yeah.
resolution together. We had a hearing, and hopefully we'll have some legislation coming out of it. And our police commissioner has been very hands-on. He shared an experience of this young person. They kept arresting and they kept taking them back to their home. And then he finally asked her, this was many years ago, and so what is this cycle we're going through? And the person said to him, you never asked me why I was running away in the first place. Because the problem is in my home. You know, we don't even think about that.
Yeah.
We have adults, parents, other relatives actually grooming and trafficking
Oh
children.
yeah,
So
I
we have to
understand.
have these conversations in temples and mosques and churches everywhere, and we have to take the sort of this polite society shroud away and say, look behind this to really educate and transform the culture of the world, really.
So all of us, Dr. Ahmad, evolve in our understanding of issues, and so. You know, and this show's not about me, but I started law enforcement back in the 1980s, and I had a certain view. I didn't understand human trafficking, maybe a movie or two, but prostitution was a crime, and my district attorney sent me out undercover to go pick up people on the streets. It wasn't until I heard their stories that there was something missing from my police training. Like, oh, hold on a second. Why am I arresting this person? You know, they're working for somebody who at night has a knife to their throat, or they have an opioid addiction, heroin addiction back in the day, and certainly today even more so. But they don't get their heroin if they don't earn a certain amount of money per day. And that's coercion. That is, and that's a knife to the throat is one thing. Not getting your heroin, when that is what
you go
you
crazy.
feel you need for survival,
Yep.
it causes people to go to the street. So police need to learn, our audience, right? Children and youth need to see the signs and be able to understand that family issue, what's going on in a home. How about the courts? The
Very
judges
much
need,
so.
right?
So I wanted to share with you, maybe you know already, that I was able to allocate $500,000 for a human trafficking awareness and prevention campaign. That is underway right now as we speak. The trainings are going on right now as we speak for city employees, different departments, for all kinds of sectors we can access. That is going on. So that money was put out to an RFP, a request for proposal. 3 different entities got it. One is doing the branding and messaging and driving the training with support from Salvation. That's Chatterblast, and Salvation Army is the group that has been giving a lot of
They're
support.
terrific, by
Yep,
the way.
they
And
have
I
been-
have referred victims of human trafficking to
them.
the Salvation Army,
right.
and they have taken care of these
That's
wonderful
right.
people.
Well, let me announce right here, for the very first time ever in the history of Philadelphia, we have dedicated transitional housing beds for human trafficking survivors. We have
Shelter.
10 beds allocated. Because what happens normally when you are unhoused, you go through the homeless services and it takes a while to see where you'll be sent, and you might be sent to shelters where you can get abused all over again. So these are 10 dedicated beds. I am so happy about this. And then second, they have a hotline now that is the people's, working on the hotline are trauma informed, and they actually do follow-up, meaning if you're within range of them being able to come out to you, they'll follow up. That is unheard of.
Wow. And who calls these call takers? Is it police? Is it probation? Is it the courts?
And victims.
And victims themselves.
So those are the people
Gotcha.
we're talking about, including somebody who might have somebody who is a survivor with them, and they can refer them. But we are closing that loop to say immediately, because one of the issues if you've been trafficked for a while is it is very hard for you to leave it because your whole life has been robbed. This is like abuse, staying with your abuser. That is a phenomenon.
Very
And
much like domestic violence.
very much like domestic violence. And so the roots are, all very similar. And so in order to ask someone invite them out of that space, it takes on an average 7 tries. 7. So you have to be ready right when they're ready to go, to be and have a place for them.
Yeah, and they have to be ready. So
Yes.
so you can stand and you can you share and educate
Yeah.
on the services available, which is incredible.
Yeah.
To have shelter,
Yeah.
even if it's 10 beds, we're going to hopefully get that expanded. But
Yep.
but 10 beds where the folks running that location, they understand this
Exactly.
particular issue.
It's very specific. Only human trafficking victims will have access to this. Nobody else. And so this is, to me, worth every fight I've fought to get this money. And we're going to ask for more to make sure we eradicate this, at least in Philadelphia, to send a message loud and clear. This is not business as usual here anymore. And we have all sectors working with us. Right now, I got the allocation. The work is being done by the executive branch, by the mayor and her team. So I applaud everybody who is connected to this issue, and also, most importantly, those serving survivors, that the Salvation Armies, the Covenant Houses, these are the police people who touch people, right? So we need to support them and make sure they have resources, and the intersection with all law enforcement, healthcare, mental health care, all needs to be very clarified so that we are not siloed in how we treat people.
Beautiful. Yeah, we got to knock down those silos. If it was just you and the mayor, but not the police department, that's a big miss. And the courts, like the courts could be out there doing something like, sentencing these victims. And then we're doing everything we can on our side, but everybody has to know what each other's doing.
That's right.
And that's your job, right?
That's my job
Councilmember
as a
at
city
large.
council member at large. This is an issue that I've sunk my teeth in. And talking about courts, I didn't quite answer when you had asked to start off with. I actually spoke to, and I can share this, with the Supreme Court Justice Kevin Doherty, who was part of the family court before he ascended to the Supreme Court.
A leader in that.
Yes, a leader in that space. And we are going to work together to convene. And, with the court system, you have to know what we can do or cannot do as an independent branch of government. And however, we've already started the conversation. I was waiting for this $500,000 to get into work, like be on the ground. And now we're going to pull in, what training do the judges get? That's what I'm really interested in. We're training police officers, we're training all first responders right now as we speak, right? What is the training of those who sit in judgment to decide what sentence? I got into this work because of a judge in Philadelphia.
No kidding.
Judge Lori Dumas. And another person is First Lady of Enon Baptist Tabernacle Church, Dr. Ellen Jo Waller. These are the two people I met. I used to be a deputy mayor for Jim Kenney in his first term. And he allowed me to start the Office of Public Engagement for the city of Philadelphia. We never had one before. And that came because I served President Obama on his commission for Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. And I got to travel the country as his representative to talk to people about how we meet the needs, how does government meet needs of people. So I saw the federal level, all the way down to now municipal level.
And
But
you saw it internationally, by the way.
That's right. And I
Go ahead,
came from that.
Yeah.
And when Judge Lori Dumas had started a court, and it's still in existence, even though she's on Commonwealth Court now, she got elected statewide, working to restore adolescents' power. It's called RAP, W-R-A-P. RAP court was to make sure that young children victimized in this process were not re-victimized in the court. So she was the one I talked to, and when I was in that office and she was in that space, along with Dr. Waller from the church, we were thinking of how do we create respite spaces for people to go to. And it's come a long way. Yeah. There's a lot more respite spaces where people are getting supported. And this was in 2016, I'm talking. So I've had a thread on this till I got into a position where I was actually able to do something meaningful. And I'm so very, very glad that I had the support of my council president, Kenyatta Johnson, who really has been excellent in understanding my vision of where I'm trying to go and has been very supportive.
Wow. Dr. Ahmad, I am not around a lot of folks that are in politics that give other people credit like you just did. It is absolutely refreshing to hear that you, in your mind, you're saying, you're looking back and saying, how the heck did I really, get really involved in this? And it's nice to hear that.
Thank you.
Because we all learn from others.
We don't get here alone.
I try to surround myself with people better than me. That's why I have Megan Burke as my associate director. So, that's great. And the court. So my wife, I think I can disclose this. I'll edit it out if I'm not allowed, is a common pleas judge in Chester County.
Oh, okay.
And so she sees this and many other issues as well in her courtroom. So
If there's a way for us to convene with Judge Doherty, what we were talking about, legally and everything, we would love to do multi-county conversations around this, because this is not just in Philadelphia. Obviously, my interest is, and we are the largest city where most of this happens, I really want to have a template for other counties to pick up.
That I think is the right pathway. I think there are judges across Pennsylvania that are hungry to have greater or better impact.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you're on the bench for a long time and people are going to jail, in and out, to actually have a story at the end of your career, or 50 stories of how you've helped people. Yeah. And so I think that would be a popular thing. And Justice Doherty, he would be a lot of fun. Doctor,
Yes.
he would be a lot of fun.
Yes.
He's entertaining, but he cares. I've seen him,
Yes.
and he cares. Yeah.
Yes, and we need that kind of leadership in that space, in the judicial space.
So, listen, trafficking, one of the points that we've made in prior shows, and I know from my experience, is, people don't see this. Now, you mentioned the subway station, and so you see it because I think you're keen on the issue, right? So the idea, we're at St. Joe, so education's important. People have to learn. So just one of the things I share with our audience is, I educate hotel staff, hotel and motel staff. I'm not talking about the GMs, although they come, right? I'm talking about the front desk people, housekeeping, maintenance people. They see what's going on the floors. We've all stayed at hotels, right? And to the untrained eye, we're wondering what is going on there. There's in and out. They're refusing room service. There's all these signs. So what's important is that law enforcement, which now gets, these are victims, it's not making arrests to make yourself look good, is identifying victims and holding the trafficker accountable. So we have to get hotel, motel staff and others to report this crime.
So on that front, I have something to report as well. From another colleague in the State House, Regina Young, State Representative Regina Young, has a bill that has cleared the House and is at the Senate level to get passed, which requires all hotel and motel and frontline staff to be trained to spot it, to know how to report it, and what to do to intervene in specific cases when they can. So that is coming along. So that's why my bill that I did, which was about making sure those who are trafficked, when they have survived and have a regular job, that their trafficking status is not used against them to discriminate in any way. Yeah. So we are making sure we protect them once they're in the job as well.
Well, let me offer St. Joe's to you, because you know how state law, it takes a little while to get through, but there's progress. I follow that bill. But if Philadelphia City Council wanted to hold hotel owners and motel owners accountable, we have a wonderful training program. We could walk in there. All I need is 20 minutes or an hour. I like an hour. Yeah. And at the end of the training, I say, how many of you have seen these signs? And 99% say yes. And I asked them quite, nicely. Yeah. And, what did you do about it? Nothing. Yeah. So our whole thing is encouraging those folks to call. They say, well, what if we're wrong? I said, well, law enforcement is pretty smart nowadays. Yeah. They'll be able to sift through. No one's getting charged unless the investigation shows it.
So just to add on to that, the Greater Philadelphia Hotel Association is very much behind both Regina Young's bill and what we are doing. and part of this conversation with this huge awareness campaign that's going on. So this is just the beginning, right? And, 500,000 is a drop in the bucket when you think about the enormity of how we need
It's a good
to do it.
pilot.
It's a good start. And I didn't finish telling you who are the other partner in this is an organization called Stop the Traffic. And they're the data collection. What I want out of this is to be able to look at a map of Philadelphia after we have done all this work and to see where are our hotspots, and they also have an app that we are going to start putting out that you can report things right from your phone. When you see
Beautiful.
it, if you're a victim yourself, if you're just a passerby watching this, or you're any other entity.
Can they do that anonymously?
Yes, it's all anonymous.
Oh, my.
All anonymous. So I think there's so much more awareness of this, and one of the last pieces I would say is very important is the forensic auditing of money trail.
Yep.
Because in 2017, in the Super Bowl, there was a huge number of traffickers caught because of the movement of money that was happening. The banks can be involved in this, watching the activity that goes on, hotel rooms and the quick transactions that are going on. Immediately there's a awareness there, and they've actually been able to track, and Stop the Traffic shared this with us, that in real time they were seeing this activity and they could see which website was collecting people to traffic.
Yep.
Right? So
Yep.
we have a
Because
lot of
these are
tools.
not like you're not walking down the street and you find somebody. These are operations that operate over social media,
Yes.
certain internet sites.
Yes.
And so, I could see that if a human trafficker has an organized, and I've seen them, 8,
Yeah.
10, 12 people, that their money has to flow.
Yes.
And so, currency transactions over 10,000 we reported, but it's beyond that. It's
beyond that,
an organization that say is an escort service, at least, and there's legitimate services, but when you see a lot of cash transactions, and
It alerts you.
It does.
And as you said, you investigate. It might not be something, it might be something. But if it was something and you didn't investigate, you lost a chance to save somebody.
So exciting to hear this. So I'm curious, has the survivors of human trafficking, several who I've met, and I in the studio, we had one lady that talked to me about it. Have survivors taught you things? Have you seen them speak, or have you engaged with them?
We have seen them. Many of the places I've been at, the ones who feel comfortable and are okay to come out and speak have shared their stories, and they're just the tip of the iceberg into understanding the diversity in the stories, but at least we're getting some stories coming out. And I think we need to keep safer spaces that anonymize them more so that we can get more information and more diversity in how these things happen. For example, my team and I did a training with the police department on human trafficking. And I found out something I never would have thought of, right, was shoplifting. Shoplifting can happen because you're a trafficked victim who probably is also addicted to drugs.
Yes.
And similar to turning a trick, you have to go buy enough material to justify your next hit of a drug.
Exactly right.
So if I thought about shoplifting, that would have never occurred to me that there could be a much deeper motive behind all of this. That's why training is so important with diversity of options and different ways things
So
happen.
food and shelter are two things that a trafficker, if they were smart, they would make sure they take care of, but they don't always. So
That's right.
so this person, usually women, if they're reaching their mark, their $1,000 a day, whatever that dollar amount is, they'll get their drugs, they'll get their heroin, so they don't get sick, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that they're going to get money for food,
No, that's right.
and so
It is plain and simple a crime,
yeah.
and we have to address it as such.
So the victims and survivors of human trafficking have a story to tell. Let me just think about the idea of our audience here today. It's one thing, Dr. Ahmad, for you and for me to understand this issue because we've spent time learning about it. You have that great global perspective that I'm jealous of. But I have friends that do this work. Lantern Rescue is one. It's a prominent international organization that deals with this. And I learned from them. But our audience members, they're going to hear this podcast and then they'll walk away, maybe read an article once in a while. So wouldn't it be smart to encourage our audience members, get to know survivors, right? Find out if anybody's speaking in your area, if there's some groups you can volunteer at, if you're a good, trustworthy person, which our audience they are, spend time, make the beds at the shelters. When many of our audience members are in recovery, they go to AA or NA. There are victims of human trafficking that are working through
intertwined.
that. Absolutely.
As we just mentioned, there's a lot of people who are addicted to drugs who are trafficked, right? Yeah. So once you're a survivor, you have to also take care of that, right? You're not done just getting out of there. You have all these, like a chemtrail that's happening after you come. So I think you're giving me an idea as we're talking, because my mind is always...
You're like me. I have too much on my plate, but I can't stop thinking.
Ahmad is going, oh no, that's another idea she's thinking of.
Write this down.
Just thinking of creating a safe space with vetted people who come into it for those survivors who are willing to have more in-depth conversations, and which will allow maybe like a podcast. You don't have to see who they are. You don't have to.
I love it. Yes.
Podcasts.
Yeah.
Podcasts are a perfect
way
to reach out.
And honestly, if there's safe spaces without the video, you can. The audio is okay. Yeah. The video where, listen, I've heard speeches and I like the speeches, but I just want to be in the same room and have a dialogue. I want to know where the person came from. Yeah. Like a lot of our audience members have asked us previously, are these from overseas? No. Very few. Well, actually, there are a lot from overseas.
So we have numbers on that.
Yeah, please.
Who's overseas?
Yeah.
Let me see.
But some are American born. Right?
73% are local.
So, wow.
Local meaning to the United States.
Essentially American born, but tough times in the homes.
And so here we go, even better. In 2023, 93% were either U.S. citizens or their nationality was unknown, and 7% were new foreign nationals. Yeah. However, we have other data that shows it's about a 70% range of who we can say for sure are local, meaning local to the country.
Yeah. You're a physicist, right?
I'm a biomedical
scientist. Yeah. So you get science and research. So I look at a stat like that and I have a measure of confidence in it. Yeah. But I want you to know that the data comes from law enforcement records. And it's not until more recently, let's say the last 5 or 10 years, that law enforcement even focused on this topic.
Oh.
So
Don't
let's get focused, and I think that data will bear out over time. But I don't know. I am so curious where these victims come from. Yeah. I think it's right, but let's really engage.
So that's exactly why we're doing this work, to actually count what we are having here, and what you mentioned about law enforcement not disaggregating this data to know if it's human trafficking, what it's connected to deeper. That is absolutely true. Yeah. And we're having a conversation with the police commissioner to actually have on their information of quality of life crimes, this is where it's lumped together, is to separate this out so people can actually see what is it that comes from this kind of coercive behavior that results in human trafficking. So we have some work to do there, because we have cases where we know there was human trafficking involved, but the overt case was just a sexual assault. Yeah. So it gets, tagged as a sexual assault, and you don't see the human trafficking component of that. And we need to see both.
Yeah, and we law enforcement and prosecutors,
Yep.
both, and judges at times, although they don't have a free dialogue necessarily with a
Yeah.
defendant, but law enforcement needs to ask the questions. And so what I encourage here at St. Joe's, or criminal justice students that I get to engage with, be curious.
Yeah.
Be curious. If you see something, it looks like this to you based on your life experience,
Yeah.
why don't you test that and just ask questions if they're willing to answer.
Answer them. Yeah.
Because
absolutely.
that's how we learn. Like, you're right, it could be a victim of a sexual assault, but if you ask the right questions, you build some trust, you might find out that that person is actually being trafficked.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Wow, we've covered a lot. So what gives you hope? Despite you see the stats,
Yeah.
you see the problem uniquely. You're a council member at large at one of the United States' largest cities. I see what you see at the subway station, the Greyhound bus terminal.
Yes.
Well, it used to be where I was when I
Yeah.
did some work on human trafficking cases. But we see this. What gives you hope?
I get hope because the city of Philadelphia invested $500,000 for the first time, naming it such, right? Which means now people are paying attention across the board. You know, we have FIFA coming, we have a lot of, and that's the impetus for me to get it for this time. But that's not stopping with just the FIFA happening and being over. We have to continue this work. And that's where I'm hoping all this work we're doing will mobilize people, our constituents, to say, well, what are you doing next? What are we continuing with this? And we want people to ask us to continue the work. Particularly, my hope is if there's one survivor listening in on this conversation today,
Yes.
one survivor who hears this podcast, I want you to know there are opportunities for you to reach out and get some support. And I wanted to share phone numbers on where they can. The National Human Trafficking Hotline is 1-888-373-7888. I'll repeat it, 1-888-373-7888. And the local Salvation Army New Day to Stop Trafficking hotline is 267-838-5866. Once again, 267-838-5866. That's the local Salvation Army New Day to Stop Trafficking hotline.
Wonderful. Well, it's just been a pleasure. Dr. Ahmad, you are just a leader in this. I love you gave credit to others, but you're building a team.
Yes.
And Justice Doherty and others, that's a wonderful group of folks that you could put together to address this really interesting and compelling issue. The bottom line is, let's help people. Let's help people become not just victims, but survivors.
That's right.
Let's identified as victims, but then let's help them survive. So I just want to thank you. I want to extend just to my gratitude, Dr. Ahmad, for you being on my guest today. Your insight, your lived experience. And when I say that, I mean your 11, 12-year-old eyes saw things that you should have never seen. And some of our audience members as first responders, we see things we never thought we would see.
That's
and it's
right.
very, very hard. And
That's
so
right.
I think about you and the memories that you had as a child in a war zone. But mostly I think about the wisdom that you gained, over the years. And so you, unlike me in my early career, you saw things that were really horrible, and that could just be a part of you. And then you just do whatever else you do to make a living. But something drives you to move that forward. And I think we got a little bit of a glimpse of that. You are confronting the realities of human trafficking. Our audience, we want you to do the same. Take what you've heard from Dr. Ahmad and our podcast on this topic, but please do a little bit your own research. Find some folks. If you go to AA or NA, there's open meetings. You can be a guest. Get to know people. If there's a shelter, put yourself out there. If you're a first responder, I think they would love to have you help. even if you're running security from the front desk for a domestic shelter, but have a conversations with people and learn perhaps more than we know, right? From the survivors and those that are dealing with it. Today's conversation was very heavy, but it's also hopeful. I love the smile on your face and the motivation you have to pull together these various parties. Don't forget St. Joe's. I want so much for us to be involved with this stuff because it's a passion.
We are going to get back to you on how we can very, sort of intentionally have a pathway with all of you, because this is such a big problem. We need everybody to be engaged.
We're here. It fits our Jesuit values.
Yeah.
Care for the whole person and standing with those in the margins, thinking about it. Just like the victims and the survivors of human trafficking are marginalized. They're called names like prostitutes. No, they're human beings, right? And that's our values that we try to share with our students. So in today's episode, we did talk about some heavy stuff. Dr. Ahmad, thank you for sharing those numbers. There's ways to connect victims and ways to report. Local police are great. Local and city police, that's not a bad place to stop. They're being educated. They'll handle things appropriately, right? And but I would just want to thank you for coming today. If you found value in today's discussion, Megan and I love to hear from you. So if you email us at care@sju.edu, that would be wonderful. I'm Steve Forzato, and this has been the Refresher Podcast for Phoenix Training, Addiction and Connection to Treatment. Stay safe, stay informed, and as always, thank you for listening.
Thank you for having me.